I'm sorry, Lorelei. You're not going to be able to have biological children when you're older. My mother was crying. Sadie groans. All this over your broken uterus? Yeah, I guess she's pissed I can't be an incubator for her grandkids. Our family is special. We have been blessed with the blood of Lucifer down a long lineage. He needs a son, which is why I brought Nathan, to give Sadie a child before all hope is lost. Sadie is sobbing as I throw open the front door and we run into the night. We got to get out of here. We're going to hitch a bus, and we're going to find a church. The heavy church door swings open. My name is Father Vincent. Lorelei, Sadie, we've been expecting you. You are dangerous. Your death will be quick and painless. Save your sister. Do it, Lorelei, but I can't. Lorelei. My head snaps to the altar. There stood my sister, shaking and covered in blood. Sadie, are you hurt? What happened? Where is he? Sadie finally responds, raising a shaking finger to point behind the altar. It's Father Vincent, all right, but he's split in two, his upper half propped against the altar, his lower splayed against the opposite wall, and on his face is a look of shock and fear I have never seen. He wanted to kill me. He pinned me on the altar. I think I tore him apart. My confusion and fear couples with my relief that Sadie isn't dead. How could my sister, 13, 5 feet tall and 100 pounds soaking wet, rip a grown man in half? We needed to get out of this church now. It's not until my phone buzzes with a text when I realize that the 911 operator has hung up on me. 17 Carpenter Street. We will give you shelter. Lucifer does not condone your suffering. I knock on the door. I have no time to second-guess myself, because in mere seconds the door swings open, and arms are tugging us inside the foyer. I can't imagine what you two have been through. Please, let us help you. There are 5 people surrounding us, clutching blankets and towels. We're followers of Lucifer, but certainly not the sect of your mother. I'm Ed. Condescending Barbie to my right is Madison. Mr. Schwarzenegger over there is Zach. I'm Nyla, and that is, well, just call him Ginger. We've been keeping tabs on your mother for a while, but we never knew that she would go this far. Your mother panicked because when you discovered your infertility, it fell to Sadie to continue the bloodline. Lucifer leads us to enlightenment, natural human development of our own moral compasses, not evil. Okay, Lucifer's cool, whatever. So how the fuck did Sadie rip a man in half? Well, you got some powerful genes, that's for sure. My guess is, when your life was threatened, that power decided to make an appearance and protect you from Father Dahmer. Mom? I sputter into the receiver. What do you want from us? You just don't understand, sweetheart. Just bring Sadie home, dear. We can still be a family, together. She won't have to raise the baby alone. Sadie doesn't deserve this, Mom. I'm sobbing into the phone now. You're just like your father, Lorelei. He proved his worthlessness by giving me 2 damn daughters. I told him we needed to try again. He told me I was insane. Mom, what happened to Dad? What did you do to Dad? Her reply is quick and razor-blade sharp. Penance. There was a loud crash as the window behind the couch we were sitting on shattered. It's Madison. I realized that she was shot. How'd they find us? Sadie lays next to me, curled under the coffee table. More shots pepper through the broken glass. Ed disappears for a moment, coming back brandishing a shotgun. I glance up to find Nyla shooting back through the window. Nyla calls over the chaos. Ed, got a plan B in that big ancient head of yours? Same as plan A. We raise hell. I remember when Sadie was born. Vaguely, bits and pieces. I remember waking up one morning to my babysitter, Kendall, sliding blueberry Eggo waffles in the toaster and pouring me a tall glass of chocolate milk. I was confused for a couple of reasons. Mom never told me Kendall was coming. Eggo waffles and chocolate milk were for the weekends, and I was supposed to be in preschool that Thursday morning, not tucked into bed. It's a special day, Lori. Mom's having the baby. Where is Mommy and Daddy? The hospital, sweetheart, Kendall says, pushing my plate towards me. Are you excited to meet your new baby brother or sister? Not really. When I first learned Mom was having a baby, I cried. Selfish little brat I was. I had gotten quite used to being the only child, and by consequence, the center of attention. Dad kept an old scrapbook of Sadie and I growing up, and there's one picture he always loved to show us, of me holding Sadie after they brought her home. I am scowling and pursing my lips, my face screwed up and glaring at the bundle placed precariously in my arms. He would hold me in his lap and point at the pictures, flipping through the memories he meticulously compiled. Sadie and I at the beach in our matching bikinis, me grinning in my Cinderella Halloween costume, holding a pillowcase full of candy almost as big as me. I can see those pictures when I close my eyes, hear Dad's voice float over my head. I wish I took the time to look at his face. Mom always wanted another kid. I heard them fighting about it once. Deanna, we agreed on 2. We can't fit another kid in here. I want a boy, Felix. We must have a son. What's wrong with our daughters? Nothing, but you know that. Will you shut up about the stupid prophecy? It's not real, Deanna. You're insane. He died a few months later. I hadn't always been the best sister, but I tried my best. I guess you could say she grew on me. Sadie is ultra-sensitive, a little rude, and always talks during movies. But she also is kind and inherently caring. Qualities I don't have. I miss my dad. I miss my mom, too. For a mere moment under that table, Ginger hugging me tight and Sadie shaking beside me, I feel like a child wanting to be loved. I exhale in his grip, closing my eyes and pretending for a second or two that everything is fine and that Sadie is complaining about her English project, and I'm scheming to get my hands on some cheap liquor, courtesy of a friend's older cousin from the liberal arts college nearby. Another gunshot brings me back to reality, coupled with Sadie's shriek in my ear. I am back under the table. I glance to my right. Zach slowly removes his hands from Madison's neck, shaking his head and gritting his teeth. Her eyes stare at the ceiling as blood oozes from the wound, considerably slower than it was moments before. Shit, he whispers as he laces his hands behind his back. Sadie follows my gaze before breaking down into tears once more. Shh, I murmur. Don't look over there. Look at me, Sadie. The gunfire slows before stopping completely. The ringing in my ears, coupled with the heavy breathing of everyone in the room, is a sound I fear I may never forget. Well, not everyone. Madison is dead, probably because of me. If we didn't come to this house, she would probably still be alive. Great job, Lori. Are they gone? Nyla questions, breathless. I think I got one. Don't know if they're dead, though. No, Ed responds, tightening his grip on the shotgun. They must be regrouping. Now that they know where the kids are, there's no way in hell they're leaving until they get what they came for. Ginger releases us from his grip. Sweat drips through his hair and trails down his face and neck. The look he gives me is a melting pot of emotions. Fear, sadness, and certainly an air of hopelessness. With no words, his expression seems to say it all. We are fucked. So, I decide to do something I had never done before. At Zoe's house, I've sat through grace before meals, where they thank God and spout out some prayer mumbo-jumbo I've never learned. I've always sat and waited for it to be over, still and polite, mulling over how hot her older brother is and whether or not these mashed potatoes will be as good as Mom's. I had never taken the time to pray myself, but there's a first time for everything. I close my eyes and tilt my head to the ground like Zoe does. Dear whoever is out there, please help me. I'm out of ideas. Everyone is dying. If you're out there, you're doing a shit job at protecting us. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Just, do your thing. Amen. Is amen what you say, or is that a Jesus-specific thing? Ed brings me back to the present. Ah, fuck, he murmurs, standing over Madison's body. She was a good kid. Annoying as fuck, but a good kid. Had more good in her heart than the lot of us combined. Are you sure she's dead? Nyla says, and her voice is wobbly. I peek from under the table and take note of her glassy eyes. Zach nods. Yeah, bullet tore right through her jugular, bled out in minutes. He extends 2 fingers to her face and gently closes her eyes. A hush falls over the room. After a moment, Ed breaks the silence. We mourn later. For now, we got a band of hooligans planning their next attack. Zach rocks back on his heels. Why would they just blindly shoot through the window? Sadie gets sniped, it's all over. Why would they take that risk? Either they've got some sort of COD sniper or a boatload of stupidity. Probably both. Maybe they wanted to scare us. Called off the shootout once they got Mads. Nyla tucks the gun back into the holster wrapped around her waist. The doorbell rings. We freeze as the firm knocking on the door reverberates through the house. Who's that? Who the fuck you think it is? The fucking pizza delivery man? Ed snarls. It's them. Them rolls off his tongue in disgust, as if the mere word sickens him. Why on earth would they ring the doorbell? I hiss, finding my voice. Didn't think they were one for common courtesies. Sadie slowly crawls out from under the table. I follow, gripping her hand and pushing us both against the wall next to the sofa. Ginger settles next to us. What do we do? Nyla hisses. We prep for any type of invasion, not them ringing the fucking bell. The doorbell rings again. A male voice calls from outside. Fellow followers, we've come to bargain. My heart clenches in my chest. Nathan. A covert glance at Sadie shows me she recognizes him too. Her face is ghostly white, shoulders trembling. Shut up, Dr. Strange, Nyla shouts. We're doing no fucking bargaining. You haven't even heard what we have to offer, comes Nathan's voice from the outside. We have all the chips here, asshole, Nyla calls back. Nothing you could possibly offer us will give that up. A fragile female voice I don't recognize shouts from outside. Can we at least come inside and have this conversation? I'm afraid my old bones can't take much more of this heat. Fuck you and your old bones, Grandma, Nyla replies. Ed walks towards the door and gently pushes Nyla aside. Let me handle this. He leans against the doorframe, slugging his rifle over his shoulder. Don't get any funny ideas, you bastards. The girl is with us. You make any stupid moves, she gets blown to smithereens. Don't think we won't. Sadie winces next to me, and I sling my arm over her shoulder, pulling her to my chest. I whisper into her ear, "They're just saying that so they don't hurt us. No one is going to shoot you." Nathan laughs. "Oh, trust me, Ed. I don't underestimate you. We all know you're capable of spilling some blood." "Perverts are my game of choice," Ed retorts. Nathan pauses. "At least listen to my bargain. You're surrounded, Ed. I know you're usually not one for picking the short straw, but you ran out of luck this time. Janice picked the right morning to walk her dog." I hear a faint and high laugh from outside the door. "The fucking woman walking her dog. She's one of them. She saw you. She called them. You're a fucking idiot, Lorelei." "You give us Sadie, you keep Lorelei, and you get the book." "The fuck is the book?" Nyla gasps, clasping her hands over her mouth. Zach narrows his eyebrows. Ed seems suddenly interested, tipping his head against the door to hear better. "Fuck you," Ed whispers. "You don't have the book." "There's no way they have the book," Nyla whispers frantically. "It's in, like, Brazil or something." "I thought it was in South Africa," Zach whispers, his fists clenched. Nyla is almost hysterical. "Wherever it fucking is, it's not here." "What is the book?" I ask, voice rising. "What the fuck is the book?" I can barely hear Janice from the other side of the door. "The girl's mother has kept it. She just wants them home. She's willing to exchange the book for Sadie. Imagine, my friends, a descendant of our Maker, and his book. Imagine what power you could have." "Excuse me," I am almost shouting now, jumping to my feet. "What the fuck is the book?" "Lori," Nathan cheers from outside. "How lovely it is to hear your voice again." "Fuck you," I cry, filled with a hatred I had never quite experienced before. I cross the living room and up to the door. "Fuck you and your stupid book, and fuck all these things I don't know about. Take one fucking step through this door and Sadie will rip you in half, just like she fucking did to that creeper priest." Ed jabs me in my ribcage. "And if you want to fucking talk, fucking bargain, you talk to me, not anyone else. Me." I realize I am throwing a tantrum, but I'm far too fed up to care. "So," I continue, "take your stupid fucking book and your stupid fucking wizard devil pentagram shit and fucking shove it, because I am going to fucking end you." I turn to Ed and shove him hard. He nearly flies into the back wall, gasping for breath. My hands are tingling and I can hardly see straight. An arm that is not my own, is my own, reaches towards the lock on the door and untwists it. Shouting behind me to stop, die down as I swing open the door. Standing in front of me are 3 people. Nathan, his belt buckle glinting in the sunlight, his balding head shiny and slick. The lady from before who was walking her dog, prim and proper, wrinkles sprouting across her forehead and cheeks. And at last, there is my mother, her eyes filled with worry, dried blood pasted to her forehead where I bludgeoned her with a femur bone a day and a half prior. We lock eyes. "You know, Lori, it's normal to experience some hormonal changes at your age, especially with menopause." I open my mouth to scream. Nathan immediately reaches for me, seizing me by my waist and spinning me around to face the room. The cold touch of a knife settles on my throat, and I realize that Nathan is holding the blade to my neck, as I had done to Sadie hours prior. Ed is still on the floor, sputtering for breath. Nyla and Zach have their guns trained on my mother and Janice. Sadie is huddled in the corner, head tucked between her knees, sobbing. Ginger is crouching beside her. I can feel Nathan's hot breath in my ear, in my face, as I have no choice but to inhale his scent. "This is it, folks," he bellows. "Sister for a sister. Give us the young'un, and they both live." My rage grows as the knife catches the ceiling light and traces across my neck. My heart pounds louder as I see my sister in the corner, raising her head to look at me, tears staining her blotchy cheeks. I think of many things in this moment. I think of Nathan and the belt. I think of the doctor's sympathetic gaze in the examination room, the man at the 7-Eleven, and the girl who was shot on the bus. Father Vincent's finger under my chin. The woman, lifeless on the floor, meters from my feet. The one who had rubbed my back as I cried. I think of Dad and the scrapbook. There is a boiling in my belly and a tingle in my toes. Ed pushes himself up by his forearms. "Raise hell, Lorelei," he whispers. There is a knife to my throat. My mother wants me dead. My sister is helpless and terrified. But for the first time in a long time, I am not afraid. "So, you're leaving? Is that what's going on? You're just giving up on us?" My father shook his head and furrowed his brow, taking a moment to readjust the hefty duffel on his shoulder. "That's not what's happening, and you know it. I just need a few days to think, damn it." I was watching from the living room. My Barbie felt heavy in my hand, I remember that much. One glittering pink heel on, one off. She wore a skirt I made of tissue paper, lazily taped around her waist, because I had a habit of designing my own wedding dresses. "You're giving up," my mother accused. "You're giving up on Lori and Sadie." Sadie was down for a nap a few doors over. I glanced in the direction of her room, as did my father. "You know that's not—" My mother interrupted. "Lori," she said, turning towards me, "do you see what's happening? Your father doesn't love you anymore. He's leaving because he doesn't want you anymore." Dad turned white as a ghost. "Lori, that's not it," he stammered. "Go to your room." "No," Mom hissed, whipping around to face him. "I want her to stay. I want her to watch you walk out of her life. I want her to see it." Mom and I lock eyes again, as I grip Barbie by her hair. "He's leaving you. He hates you." My vision was blurred by my tears, and I began to blubber, pleas and shouts dropping from my young lips. Mom shouts over my cries. Sadie begins to cry from somewhere else in the house, stirring awake from her nap. "Look at what you've done, Felix. Look at what you've done." My eyes snap open. The blade of Nathan's knife rests on my throat, and I can feel his arm slung around my waist, the sweat from his balding head dripping into my mangled hair. My mother and Janice slowly enter the foyer from the outside, and the click of the door locking into place pounds in my ears like a drum. "Get the fuck off of me!" I scream. My right hand grasps his forearm and wrenches the limb away from my neck as he cries out and stumbles backwards, gripping his arm and howling, almost knocking over Janice and my mother, who scramble to the side. I whip around to face him as he raises a shaking arm in horror. The smell of burnt flesh lingers in the air. A small handprint circles Nathan's arm, soaking into his burning flesh as his skin begins to bubble and pop. A thick brand quickly forming, leaking blood and yellowing pus, a thin layer of charcoal tinging the edges. Nathan hisses as steam escapes his wound, his arm twitching violently as he tenses his hand. "Fucking bitch burned me," Nathan yells, as Janice's face turns a sickly shade of green and my mother claps her hands over her mouth. A couple of days ago, a burn like that might have made me sick, but my stomach hardly turns at the sight. My nose doesn't scrunch at the wafting odor of burnt flesh and boiling blood. I welcome it. It belongs there, on his body, and a part of me takes pleasure in the fact that I have branded him forever. Me, Lori, daughter of... My mind stalls for a moment as I extend an arm forward and grip the front of Nathan's shirt. A short tug sends him barreling inside, and he yells at the sudden jolt, the hissing of bursting veins and vessels in his charred arm growing louder. The fabric bunched between my fingertips feels disgusting in my grip. He writhes in pain as I take my left hand and clap it against his shoulder. Nathan's scream fills the small room, and I embrace it, letting it flood my veins and make its way down to my aching fingertips. He drops to his knees and squirms, eyes wide and terrified. They remind me of Sadie's eyes that day in Mom's office as Nathan reached for his belt. The thought fuels me further. I think there are people shouting behind me, but I am unsure. My eyes are locked on Nathan's as I lower down to his level. "Please," he begs, blood from his shoulder leaking through his sleeve and staining his back. "Please, don't kill me. Have mercy." The voice that leaves my throat is barely my own. It is darker and raspier, and invites goosebumps under my skin, prickling up beneath my sweatshirt. I barely notice over the humming in my chest and the heat bubbling in my stomach. I gave up on mercy a long time ago. With that, I encircle my hand around Nathan's burnt arm once more. Over his screams, I steady my stance and throw him into the wall in front of me. His scream cuts off as he makes contact, his head smacking into the drywall. He crumples in a heap against the wall of the foyer, head cocked at an unnatural angle. The only movement is that of the handprint-shaped burns on his arm and shoulder, spreading slowly and steadily across his chest. Fresh blood leaks out of his mouth, a stark contrast to the cauterized, burnt blood dribbling out of his wounds. I take a breath. My eyes flutter to the doorway where Janice and my mother stand, still as statues. Silence for one beat, then two. Janice quivers, tears filling her eyes. "He's dead! You killed him!" I clench my fists. "Shut up!" I scream, marching towards her and grasping her by her thinning hair. In one fluid motion, Janice flies towards the other side of the room, whizzing by Ed and Nyla and crashing into a rickety bookshelf near the entrance to the kitchen. The crack of her bones reverberates through the air. A sharp shred of wood finds its way into her abdomen with a squelch. She does not have a chance to scream. It is then I take in the scene around me. Sadie is no longer crying. Instead, she is quivering in Ginger's arms as he turns her away from the sight of the bodies and towards the corner of the room. Ed has made his way to his feet, slightly wheezing, leaning against the wall for support. I cannot read his expression. My eyes flutter to the other side of the room. Nyla's expression is quite clear. Fear. Her chest rises and falls in smooth motions, but her eyes are wide and locked on the blood dribbling out of Nathan's mouth. Zach's arm has found its way around my mother's neck in a death grip, but his face is less stoic than it usually is. Awe flicks across his features, his brows slightly raised. If I squint, His lips might be tugged up slightly in a smile. My mother's head looks tiny peeking above Zach's huge arm. Her expression is one that I remember quite clearly, the face she made at the doctor's once she pronounced me infertile. It is one of blatant shock and sadness, and a hint of rage behind her eyes. She doesn't quite look like Supermom anymore. She looks small. As meek as she may look, Mom has never had trouble finding her voice. It cuts across the silence, and it is the sound that breaks me from my murderous trance and brings me back to myself, back to Lori, the Lori who can't run a sub-10-minute mile or pull off more than 10 push-ups. "Lorelei," she whispers. "Lori, look around you. Look at what you've done." "Shut up," mutters Zach, tightening his grip. "Keep your damn mouth shut." My eyes flicker to Nathan and Janice and their mangled bodies. In a strange turn of events, my mind wanders to Janice's dog. Who will walk him now? I look down at my feet with a long exhale as Mom continues to speak. "You killed them, Lori. You killed those people with your bare hands. And they begged for you to stop, didn't they?" "Shut up," mutters Zach, his strong arm squeezing against my mother's trachea. Her voice is a bit wheezy under his hold, but she carries on. I cannot help but stare at her. I feel heavy. My legs feel like jelly. Only Mom's voice could do this to me. "Nobody was meant to die," Mom whispers. "No one was meant to get hurt. Look around you, honey. 3 dead bodies in a matter of hours. This wasn't supposed to happen." "I'll fucking kill you," Zach murmurs. "No," I say, my voice hoarse. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I had to protect us. Sadie. I had to protect Sadie." Mom laughs. Zach's muscles twitch, and her laugh turns into a gasp. "Zach," I say, "let go of her." Zach shook his head. "No way." I meet his eyes. "Now." Ed speaks up. "Zach." With a shake of his head and a glance of disapproval, Zach releases my mother. Her laugh grows louder as she takes a step towards me. "Protect Sadie? You really think you've been protecting Sadie? Sadie's faced death more times than I could count on your little escapade. Taking her to church, Lorelei? You're lucky the ceiling didn't crash." "I was doing my best," I spit. "We weren't really left with many options." Mom shakes her head. "Tell me, Lori, was this little mission worth it? Where's your body count now? Must be nearing the double digits. Running around, killing anyone who gets in your way. All for what?" Tears blur my vision. I blink them away. I didn't mean to kill anyone." "Ha!" Mom barks. "Sweetheart, you enjoyed it. Don't pretend you didn't. Don't pretend you're not trying to compensate for your lack of womanhood by playing some sort of savior." The last word rolls off her tongue, sarcasm dripping from her voice. She takes a stray strand of my hair and tucks it behind my ear. I let her. She shakes her head as her hand rests on my face. "Where's the end game, Lori? You kill your own mother and run off with your sister and some ragtag band of traitors? Running is something I suppose you're destined to be good at. Your dad was great at it, after all." I bristle. "You killed Dad." Mom shrugs. "He didn't quite understand our circumstances," she exhales. "But you're not one to talk about killing, my sweet. You'll never be able to control that monster inside of you. You're destined to destroy." Come home. We can figure this out together. I'm a good person, I sputter as my stomach turns. I'm a good person. Nyla interrupts from behind us, voice shaking. Just kill her, Laurie. She's trying to guilt you. Mom raises a brow at me, expectantly. My eyes fall to my feet. I can't. Mom snorts. Of course you can't. You can run around burning holes in people's heads and throwing them into walls, but you could never. A horrible noise interrupts Mom's words. It is a squelch, a crack, a sick ripping and tearing all in one. Mom's mouth gapes open as she falls to the floor in a heap at my feet. Well, most of her, anyways. My eyes snap up. Still as a statue, grasping my mother by her hair, is Sadie. Blood pours from my mom's severed head and crashes at my feet in a red waterfall. It soaks into her body below, mixing with the blood pumping out of her neck. Nerve endings and an inch or two of spinal cord pokes out from Mom's headless corpse. Sadie just ripped our mother's head off. I can, Sadie says, voice dull and monotone. She sighs as she releases Mom's hair, and her head slams into the floor, skull cracking, rolling an inch or two before settling a mere foot from her body. Sadie and I lock eyes and stare at each other. Sadie's eyes are wet with tears, but besides that, her face is stoic and calm. I feel a single tear fall down my face as I take her into my arms, sobbing. Her arms wrap around me as I cry my tears, legs shaking. We both fall to our knees, next to Mom's corpse. Sadie tips her head against my shoulder as I cry, every emotion flooding through me as tears rack my body and I feel myself shudder in her embrace. Is it over? I whisper. Yeah, Sadie says. It's over now. The old sedan sputters as it rolls down the highway. I glance out the window, Sadie's hand in mine as she leans on me from the middle seat, fast asleep. Nyla sits to her right. This car sucks, Nyla says. Shut your trap, barks Ed, with a hint of playfulness in his voice as he grips the steering wheel. This beauty has been in the family for 35 years, and she's still on her A-game. Zach fiddles with the radio from the passenger seat, static rising and falling as he attempts to find a station. Reception here is shit, he mutters. Can't find any good music for the life of me. Nyla turns herself around to the back, where Ginger is draped across the seats, flipping through a magazine. You doing okay back there? She questions. Ginger nods before returning to his reading. Are we almost there yet? I ask. Ed nods. Just a couple miles to go. We get off at that exit, find the motel, and head to the hospital ASAP. You sure this is safe? I question. This lady is the best gynecological surgeon in the state, Ed responds. Was more than happy to help when I called her up. She can get Sadie in and done tomorrow. We will let her recover for a few days, then we head west. Got some friends on that side of the country who are more than willing to help us crash till we figure out our next move. How do you have so many connections? Nyla asks. Ed laughs. You know me, I've got friends everywhere. Silence settles in the car as Zach finally finds a working radio station. Lady Gaga's Just Dance pumps through the speakers. Ed snorts. What on earth is this? Maddie liked this song, Zach explains. Ed pauses. After a moment, he reaches for the volume dial and turns it a few notches higher. Zach awkwardly clears his throat. Listen, Laurie, there's something we've been meaning to give to you. Found it with your mom. He reaches into his backpack and pulls out a small black journal, leather fraying at the edges with yellow stained pages. This book is, well, pretty important. We believe it was written by Lucifer when he walked the earth. Not sure what's exactly in it, but it might have some of the answers you're looking for. Maybe give you some better insight into what kinds of powers you and Sadie might have. I take it from Zach and glance at it in my lap. Lucifer had a diary? He shrugs. Again, not sure what's in it. We figured it was best for you and Sadie to hold on to it. Do with it what you will. My thumb traces the cracks on the cover as I nod. With a twinge of nerves in my belly, I flip open the cover, only to find a few words in chicken scratch handwriting, etched across the entirety of the first page in jumbled sizes.
Daughter of mine, your strength knows no bounds.